Considered to be one of the beef capitals of the world, Argentina is home to many fine restaurants for steak. On my trip to Buenos Aires, I went to one of the city's best and most famous establishments for meat, the legendary Parrilla La Brigada, where I enjoyed an incredibly fine meal. Today, as you can probably tell, I am not in Argentina. So the thing is, I never actually got to film an introduction and conclusion to this amazing steakhouse adventure that I had, but better late than never. I mean, when I'm traveling, I'm trying to make the most of my trip. I have a given amount of time and I want to see as much as possible, and because of that, this little introduction and conclusion just got kind of forgotten about. But like I said, better late than never. Anyways, one of the things that I actually knew about Argentina's culinary scene even before I traveled there was that they were famous for their meat, particularly beef. So I wanted to go to a steakhouse, and when it comes to steak in Buenos Aires, there is no place more famous and highly regarded as the legendary Don Julio. There are many who claim Don Julio is the greatest steakhouse in the world, and when the Michelin Guide made its debut in Argentina, Don Julio won a Michelin star. It's always impressive for any restaurant to win a Michelin star, but steakhouses, they hardly ever get Michelin stars, so that's pretty impressive. I obviously wanted to go there, so even before I actually booked my hotel, in fact, right after I got my plane tickets, I went and checked to see if there were any reservations open for Don Julio, and sadly, there were not. I wasn't too surprised. It's a very famous restaurant, but fortunately, there are actually other ways to dine there without a reservation. One can show up to the restaurant, put their name on a list, and wait. But the thing is, you're probably going to be waiting for a very long time. I sadly did not go to Don Julio. That is my only regret with my entire trip to Buenos Aires. I just didn't want to spend so much time waiting for a restaurant when there are so many other amazing sights and things to do in the city. Plus, there are a number of other highly regarded and amazing places for steak in Buenos Aires, which is what brought me to the legendary Parrilla La Brigada, and this was the amazing meal I had at a very classic Argentinian steakhouse. La Brigada is located in the San Telmo neighborhood of Buenos Aires. Since I didn't have a reservation, I headed to the restaurant early. On the particular night I went, the place opened at 8 p.m. and I got there about 25 minutes early, so to pass the time I walked around the area a bit and stepped inside the San Telmo market. When I returned to the restaurant at about 10 minutes to 8, there was already a decent number of people waiting, so I found a spot in line. After opening, it took a little while to get everyone seated. I wasn't the only one who didn't have a reservation, but I eventually got a table on the second floor. Decor-wise, sporting memorabilia adorn seemingly every square inch of wall and even ceiling space. Of course, restaurants with a sports theme can be good, but I typically don't have the highest expectations of them. However, Argentina is serious about sports, and La Brigada certainly takes their food seriously. The restaurant was established in 1992 by chef Hugo Echeverrieta, who made a name for himself by cooking steaks that were so tender they could be cut with a spoon. I was really eager to see if the steak I was about to order would be that tender. I love the design of the menu with a metal relief of a cow. It was just plain cool. It's basically a warning to all vegetarians. La Brigada is about meat, particularly beef. But to be fair, there are a number of salads on offer. In regards to the meat, there are a lot more cuts and options than would typically be found at a US steakhouse. There's options for the whole family, from kidneys, sweetbreads, tripe, and so much more. Those dishes probably would be best shared among a group of people, so I kept it simple by ordering a T-bone steak. Besides meat, La Brigada is also famous for their wine. The restaurant's cellar is filled with over 60,000 bottles of Argentinian labels. If I was back in the US, I would probably be looking for wine by the glass, but Argentina is so much more affordable, so I was after a bottle. A couple of days before my dinner at La Brigada, I dined at a restaurant called Cervantes, where I almost finished a full bottle of wine and had way too much food to eat. Simply put, I didn't feel too good physically after that meal, so I was a bit more conservative in my wine selection by getting a half bottle of the 2021 Rutini Malbec. It's from a winery located in the Mendoza region of Argentina. I really enjoyed the Malbec. It had a nice body and mouthfeel and paired very well with my steak. But before my T-bone arrived, I helped myself to the bread on the table. It was alright, but nothing special. I also made use of the olive oil I was given, and together it made for a nice snack to enjoy before the rest of my food was presented. Regarding the service, it was solid. The only issue I experienced was the wait for my food, which took about 20 minutes. Now, that's not bad at all, but the problem was that nearly all of what I ordered came out almost at the exact same time, which included my wine, and I was thirsty. Waiting 20 minutes for a drink was just a bit too long. But I really thought the restaurant had an excellent wait staff. Everyone was really nice and very accommodating. My waiter in particular was a really great guy. But before what I actually ordered arrived, I was given another type of bread. These were smaller, a bit more dense, but the flavor was great. I really wish I knew what these rolls were called because they were delicious. They also went really nicely with the olive oil as well. In addition to my steak, I did order an appetizer, but it was really more so a snack. It was a creamy corn-filled empanada. My thinking was that since I was about to consume such a large amount of meat that it would be nice to have something on the vegetarian side, and it was a good choice. The empanada was perfectly baked with a ton of flavor in the breading, but the creamy corn filling was an absolute delight. It was definitely a great bite to enjoy before my steak, but it was finally time to try my T-bone. When my steak was brought to the table, my waiter cut a portion of it with a spoon, which was of course what partly made Chef Echeverrieta's restaurant famous. I really appreciate that element of showmanship with the presentation of the steak. It really adds an element of character to the restaurant. There's no doubt about it, the T-bone was epic. Now I'm not sure of its exact weight, but it did cause the table of diners across from me to remark on its size. Yeah, no matter where I am in the world, I'm always shocking people with how much I order and eat. I was so excited to take my first bite. It was my first taste of Argentinian steak and it was delicious. There was a ton of flavor in the beef. It was clear that I was consuming some high quality meat. It certainly lived up to my expectations. Although, while I did request the steak to be cooked at a medium rare, most of the meat came out rare. It's difficult to cook such a large cut of beef at an even temperature, but it still would have been better with a bit more time on the grill. Despite this, I think it's most of the time better if the meat is a bit under rather than a bit over. Still, the T-bone was delicious. The fat on it had so much flavor. It's clear that the animal I was eating maintained a good diet in life. However, I would have enjoyed a bit of variety regarding the texture of the beef. I loved the beautiful char I had on steaks from restaurants like Keen's and Delmonico's in New York. To me, good textural variation lends a whole other dimension to a steak. But like I said, my T-bone was delicious even though it wasn't perfect. On the side, I enjoyed a plate of fries, and they were good. They were nice and fresh and had a delightful flavor. Now, when I ordered, I didn't even think about getting a side, but my waiter suggested it, and I'm glad he did. It's always nice to enjoy a meal featuring a variety of flavors and textures. Between my luscious steak, craveable fries, and delicious wine, I really enjoyed a great experience at La Brigada. Now, of course, it wasn't perfect. My steak could have been cooked better, and I would have liked to have had my wine presented to me earlier during my dinner, but the fact is, there's a lot to love about the restaurant. The maximalist decor is truly a treat for the eyes. The waitstaff made me feel right at home despite a language barrier. And most importantly, I loved the food. After finishing, I was presented with the bill, which came to 14,870 pesos, but with my tip, I believe I spent 18,000 pesos. At the time, $1 roughly equated to 500 pesos, which resulted in my meal costing about $36 with my tip. However, it's no secret that Argentina has been experiencing massive amounts of inflation. Today, about 6 months after my dinner at La Brigada, $1 is now equivalent to about 941 pesos. Although, I'm sure the restaurant has raised their prices accordingly. Regardless, that was an amazing deal to have half a bottle of wine, a small appetizer, a massive steak, and a side, not to mention the breads. I felt like I really got my money's worth. My dinner at La Brigada was certainly a good one. That was a very good and satisfying meal on so many levels. I miss Buenos Aires so much. I had such an amazing time there. While that was pretty much my first steak experience in Buenos Aires, it wasn't my last. The thing is, everything is so much more affordable in that city and country than it is here. As a result, I pretty much ordered steak at every opportunity that I could, and as a result, by the end of my trip, I was craving a salad, and I never thought I'd be saying that. I just wanted something green. It was just meat, meat, and meat, which is pretty nice, but there's only so much meat you can eat. I really regret not going to Don Julio. I want to visit Buenos Aires again someday, and when I do, I definitely will be paying a visit to Don Julio. However, I'm still incredibly thankful that I got to enjoy a great meal at the legendary Parrilla La Brigada. That was amazing.